Hey everybody, it's Kelly here with Burlington Green. Hope you're all having a great day. Thank you so much for joining us. We're going to be having Chantelle Misheal on here to talk about food waste and mindful consumption in just a moment, so that's very exciting. Before I bring her on, I just wanted to share that today's event is part of our Grow to Give program, which is funded by the Emergency Community Support Fund and the Burlington Foundation. It's also part of our Community Eco Network, which is very proudly sponsored by Nuvo Network. So a big thank you to our funders and sponsors for making today happen. So I'm just going to bring Chantelle on in just a moment, but I did want to do a little bio and let you know about Chantelle before we jump in. So I've got a little blurb here and I want to read it to do it justice because this girl's got so much going on and it's amazing. So Chantelle's been teaching people the power of natural products for the past 8 years and is a trained life coach practitioner and birth and postpartum doula. Chantelle lives a low-impact life to help influence a shift to more mindful consumption within the community and advocates for plant-based and zero-waste alternatives. She hopes to make sustainable living accessible and facilitates both empowering and hands-on workshops to make this change possible for everyone. She's also a new chair on the Halton Food Council, a nonprofit organization for the promotion and support of a sustainable food strategy in Halton. So Chantelle is a very busy person and we're so excited to have her here. So without further delay, I'm going to bring her on. So just bear with me a moment. And she should be joining us in just a second while we connect. Hey, Chantelle.
Hey, how's it going, Kelly?
It's going very good. How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm loving this weather. It's perfect.
I know. We're just about ready to pull out the sweaters, right?
I know. Bring inside those plants because it's supposed to drop down a little bit, but
No, I've heard that too. So just to let everybody know, if anyone has any questions as Chantelle is talking, feel free to drop them in the comments. I think we'll both have our eyes on it. So between the two of us, we should have it covered. We will have a few minutes at the end as well with a few little Q&A time if you're wanting to ask something at that time. So feel free to jump in now or save it for later, whatever you like. I'm done talking, but I want to pass it over to you.
thank you. Thank you so much. And just first off, right off the bat, I'm so happy and so honored to be continuously working with Burlington Green because you guys do such amazing work in the community. And food waste is huge. And it's such a problem that affects especially the developed countries. And I think because we're in such a privileged area with lots of amazing food, lots of amazing farmers, we take it for granted a little bit. And I'm so happy to be speaking today a little bit more about that mindfulness because we need to honor our food. We need to be a little bit more thoughtful of the future of our food security. And now is the time. These systems don't change overnight. We really need to work hard to help implement that strategy right off the bat because, well, our farmers are getting older. Our average age of farmers is around 55 to 60 years old. It's almost impossible for young farmers to get into the market because the cost of living is so high, farming is expensive, all of the risks associated with farming makes it very difficult. And there's so much competition. We import about 60% of our food in Canada. Why? We grow all of the best stuff, yet we're still importing apples from Spain. And I'm just so confused by that disconnect. So I would love to answer any questions as they come up. I'm going to kind of just go over a little overview as to how much food is actually wasted because these numbers always shock me.
Now, if I can interrupt real quick,
go ahead.
I have a question and I know the answer to it, but I know that not everybody might understand what the term food security means.
Okay.
Yeah, so can you touch on that?
Yeah, for sure. So to have food security within any community essentially means that people within that community have access to nutritious food everywhere. There's no food deserts. There's a more of an emphasis on natural produce and healthy, nutritious food that will make you feel good. We're talking about the beginning of the process to the end. So everything from farming and harvesting, processing, distributing, consuming ourselves, and also disposal of food. And when there is no waste along that whole system, we have an efficient system. When we have a sustainable and local system, we have a very strong food system. So when we talk about any sort of food system or food security, we're really looking at the future of our food and where it's coming from, and also how we're preparing for future generations. Our soil, which is the essence of all of our food security, is under huge risk. So right now, I think the biggest focus for our food security is on that soil and the health of our soil. So a lot of the emphasis is on composting and making sure that our garbage is ending up in the right space, but also maintaining the healthy biodiversity. Instead of having monocultures, instead of growing, very modified foods, we want to focus on heirloom varieties, native species, things that naturally grow here, and things that are very nutrient dense. We're seeing our nutritional value in our food go down, which is scary. Apples don't have the same nutritional content as they used to. So it's really taking it back to make sure that we have the most efficient, sustainable, local system where everyone has access to nutritious food. And that's the key word there, is everyone, because there's a lot of people, even in Halton, who don't have food security. Where is your next meal coming from? We need an answer for that as a community. So I think that it's really important that all of us you have to look around, and COVID made it really easy for us to see the disconnect and the lack of preparedness. We stripped the shelves of toilet paper. Like, we stripped the shelves of toilet paper. The produce was left untouched. Everyone went crazy for yeast and flour. Mm-hmm. And it really hurt our local farmers. It really hurt a lot of the food that we have growing here. So bringing that awareness back, supporting your local farmers, and bringing that food chain more local is the best way to make that food security. When those borders closed down, people freaked out because we import about 60% of our food. What? It's something that we really need to consider if this is to ever happen again, if something else is to ever happen. If we can't supply and protect our own food, we're not really resilient. And in times of climate change especially, we have the innovation to have undisrupted, non-stop growing all year round with less resources, not like our conventional farming. And we really need to start advocating for that, and including urban agriculture into our future community plans, and including these different innovations to help us grow everywhere and help us be able to close that gap a little bit more. So we see about 2.2 million tons of food waste in Canada every year.
That's crazy.
And this is from the whole process. So from start to finish, from when it's in the ground to when it's basically on your plate, and then obviously from the compost from there on. But financially, this comes to about $17 billion just for the food. We're not even acknowledging the water and the resources, the transportation, the packaging, the farmers' time, their energy. None of that stuff is even considered in that figure. So $17 billion just worth of food. And it happens at home. More often than not, we're wasting about 60% of our food in Halton in our homes.
Oh my goodness, that's much higher than I would have thought.
Right? So worldwide, our average is about 30%. So 30% of the food that is grown and harvested for humans is disposed without being consumed by a human. But when we look at Halton statistics, again, privileged community, very affluent, we waste about 60%. And it's heartbreaking. I used to do some work for Food for Life, which is a really great food redistribution organization, similar to Second Harvest. And the amount of food we would receive from grocery stores that couldn't be sold was astronomical. Every single day, it was skids and skids of food that we would sort and make sure that it was still good and then redistribute to the community. And this made me very aware of how many people are living in food insecurity within Halton, and how much the wasted food can be redistributed, can be sent to the communities. And it's not just for it shouldn't be thought of as food waste. It's food surplus. Like, we're talking about food that's still perfectly good from the grocery store. And being able to supply the food for this community instead of our food banks asking for donations, asking for charities and things. We already have that food, you know. It could be better spent. It could be just reallocated. So it's a really interesting concept, and I think that with some really easy tips, we can reduce our waste at home.
Yes,
what I
let's
want to
hear
talk
it.
about. And it's so easy. Honestly, it's the simplest of things. The first and foremost thing that I always recommend for people to do, just to at least make to strengthen our local system, is to support your local farmers. There are so many. Now is the season. There's so much coming out right now. Find your local farmers. If you go onto Ontario Foodland, any sort of farmers market websites, you'll be able to find deliveries to your house. Like, it's so easy these days. There's Farm Fresh City Foods. There's so many different delivery companies that will bring food from local farmers right to you. And this is a great way to plan your meals, to plan your shopping, and to have a little extra local produce, which is nice, especially in this time, because, well, I mean, we have a lot of really good food out there. Can you tell I'm hungry? I shouldn't be talking about this before I eat. But it's so true that these farms are so close by, and to support them really makes a difference. And it tastes better, I find. I don't know if you found that the food from your garden probably tastes way better than the food you get at a grocery store.
Oh my gosh, the salads that we were making, I could sit down and the whole salad came from the backyard, was like incredible.
Right.
And someone in there dropped the comments, love going apple and pumpkin picking too.
Yeah.
Something about working for it, even if it's you going out in the field and you're just, picking a pumpkin or, picking apples, like, you're supporting local business too.
Right? Seeing how it grows and increasing your own connection with the food. Because when we are disconnected from what it looks like when it's right from the field, or we don't necessarily know how long it takes to grow, we forget the amount of resources. One apple takes 125 liters of water. One apple. So when you throw out an apple, let's put that into consideration. It's not just an apple. It's a lot of resources that go along with it. And I mean, if it's traveling from far away, that's even more. So support local, look what's in season, and plan your meals around what's in season, because that's how we're going to know for sure that we're supporting our local farmers too. On the same kind of scheme of meal planning, this one's really important. We need to be a little bit more mindful as to what's in our fridges these days, and to make lists as to what you actually need. Are we impulsive? Are we just buying things because we're hungry at a grocery store? Or do you know that, you don't have any more spinach left, so you can buy some more? You really do need to have this preparedness, this mental preparedness before you go shopping. And especially when we talk about going zero waste, it's a lot easier when you have, the empty containers to fill up, or, you bring your bag with your list in it and it's ready to go. I think that there's a lot of great ways to remember the things that you need, especially with technology these days. I mean, come on. We don't really have an excuse anymore. If you need to purchase something, I think that it's really good to just be mindful about it and say, am I going to be able to use this right away? If not, let's just wait a little bit. Being creative with your meal planning is also very exciting. Now, the comment that we had about the apples and pumpkins. Do you know how to make apple cider vinegar?
No, I didn't. I wouldn't have even known.
You can literally make apple cider vinegar with the peels and the cores of your apples.
What?
So after you've gone apple picking and you've made all of the apple pie, save those cores and peels because you can make apple cider vinegar. And of course, with your pumpkins, you can use the seeds, you can use the insides for so much. Like, let's be creative and also curious as to what you can do with the whole vegetable, with the whole apple. A lot of the skins, a lot of the tops of carrots, these are all things that can make a really healthy veggie stock. So if you do eat a lot of produce, it's fantastic to keep a separate bin in the freezer where you can put in all of your scraps. Once you filled the bin, you just make a batch of veggie broth, and hey, you've used those scraps, that waste, for its entirety.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's really important that we continue to extend the life of what we have. So that idea of preservation, the art of preservation, needs to come back. we need to bring it back. We need to remember how to pickle, how to jam, how to freeze things properly, how to store things properly. Like, how we can preserve our food is really important. And there's ample information out there. I could go on about absolutely every single vegetable and how to store it properly, but it's really up to you to say, hey, the carrots aren't lasting that long. Like, I'm not able to get to them. What do I do? Okay, you look it up really quickly, how to store carrots properly. Okay, you peel them, you put them in water, and you put them in a container in the fridge. Done. Now your carrots last you so much longer, and you don't have to deal with a soggy carrot or a limpy carrot. And it's just so easy to bring these things back to life or to extend their life. So just take a second and research. There's great infographics and charts as to what you can do to properly store your veggies, and then really great information as to what you can do to quickly preserve it. I find freezing is definitely the easiest. Usually a quick boil, and you could basically freeze anything, just to extend it a little bit longer. Is there any questions so far about any of the... Oh, look at that. As I said that, a question popped up.
Oh, there you go. So can you please explain the negative impacts of food waste?
Oh, okay. That's a good one. So essentially, start to finish, when we are farming, when we are planting all of the food, we're planting too much because we're already acknowledging that a lot of it's not going to be accepted at grocery stores. So farmers are overplanting and then throwing out a lot of those crops because they're not aesthetically as pleasing for grocery stores. So right off the bat, we're using way more resources, including water, fertilizers, and degrading the quality of our soil. We are transporting this food all around the world simply for it to get thrown out. So all of the emissions from our transportation, all of the energy in our grocery stores, just for us to take it home and for it to be thrown out. It's a little silly. When we think about how much of our land is being used, it's about 28% of our agricultural land. So that amount of space can be used for habitat restoration, for anything, but instead we're really farming it to the bone and essentially wasting all that's coming from it. Last and certainly not least, and there's probably so many other things, but this is the biggest one I find, a lot of our food waste is ending up in the landfill. Mm-hmm. This is not the spot for your food. And this is actually the last tip that I have in terms of us just being more mindful of our food waste. if you have to waste, if you have to throw something out, please let it go to the compost or to your dog, but to the compost, because when it goes to our landfills, we're actually creating methane. Our food is biodegrading anaerobically, which means under layers of all of this different garbage without oxygen. When methane is created, it's actually 28 times more potent than CO2 as a greenhouse gas. So all of the times that we talk about greenhouse gases and focus on carbon dioxide, we actually need to look at our methane as well. And something that I found within the Halton Region Overview Plan that we'll talk about in a little bit as well is that there's not much mention of our emissions from our food waste. And this is a very concerning thing because our restaurants don't compost, our apartment buildings aren't enforced to compost, businesses are not composting. Lots and lots of residents aren't even composting in their detached homes. So there's a lot of impact that comes when our food is wasted, especially when it's thrown out in the wrong place. And I think it's really important to not only minimize what we're throwing out, but to divert it as well. I think that's probably the first big step, is to have a focus on diversion of our food.
For sure. And I don't know if you're going to get to it later, but is this a good segue to your little friends?
Is it time?
So I know that Chantelle has joined us, a number of times before, and you guys may have met some of her worm friends, but she does vermicomposting, and I've met them. They're hardworking little guys. And they're one of a great option for doing composting. And maybe you can talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. I'm not allowed to bring them inside unless it's the winter. My mom doesn't let me have pets. So my vermicompost, if you can see it, is this really compact bin. And it's actually 2 bins stacked on top of one another. The first bin has holes at the bottom just to help drain any of the liquid. And then the liquid at the bottom is actually a fantastic fertilizer for your garden.
Oh.
All of the nutrients from the digested food. My guys, there's little celery growing. Check this out. Lift this thing. Here we go. Look at that. This little celery guy is growing.
Wow.
How weird is that?
That is so weird, but maybe not so weird, because that would be some very nutriently dense soil in there, right?
Oh yeah. So this guy, I guess I put the ends in it and the little celery started growing again. That's so great. I just want to point something out because I just found one. So I'll show you Fred in a second, but this is actually a worm egg. If you can see the little dot there.
Oh, wow.
So that's how I know my worms are happy and healthy and having lots of fun in there. So I just put some food not too long ago in here. Let's see if we can find any of them.
I like how you're just right in there with your hands too. No hesitation there.
Oh yeah. Here we go. Okay. So they love apples. Where'd they go? So this is, here we go. Here's a Fred.
Yeah.
So they are red wigglers. The worms that you typically see when you are outside are European night crawlers, and they don't eat as much as these guys. Red wigglers are able to eat about 1.5 times their weight per day. So it makes them really great for breaking down food. You can see them all over these apple slices that I gave to them. They love watermelon for some strange reason, but they are very picky. They don't like to eat onions or cauliflower or garlic or citrus or bread. So you do have to be quite mindful as to what you feed them. But all of the soil that's in here is food. So I didn't put any soil to begin with in this bin. And this is essentially all of the food that they have eaten and then pooped out, for lack of a better term. And this is the most fertile, nutritious soil I've ever worked with in my life. I just use a little bit to sprinkle in my garden every once in a while. I make compost tea by just simply soaking a tea bag of this soil in some water with some molasses, and it makes a really great fertilizer. And it's a really awesome pet project too. If you have kids and they want to know the cycle of breaking down food and creating soil and how important your soil is, this is essentially one of the easiest ways to really identify that process, because you literally see this food break down and you see these things um, turn into this black gold. I always say that soil is the new oil, because it's literally going to be our most valuable resource once we realize that, well, we need food.
Yeah, and
So,
I love like the, like the circular nature of it. I mean, it's the perfect place for, those scraps from the kitchen. You're putting it to work, like the worms eat it, they create the healthy compost, which you can then put back in the soil to grow more food. It's just,
yeah,
it makes so much sense.
honestly, and they are such a treat. Like, they're just so sweet. They don't make a noise, they don't do anything. So it's really great to just have this simple way to make something so valuable for my garden. So those are my guys. I'm going to
That's
put this
wonderful. Thank you
lid
for
back
sharing that.
on because they don't necessarily like the light too much. And then I'm going to
Mhm.
somehow wash my hands without touching my phone.
I'm gonna say it wouldn't be a regular session if you weren't getting your hands mucky, right?
I know. Oh, yeah, and my winter plans for my guys, they typically come in before the first frost. I bring them into the basement. I know a lot of people that carry like that just keep them in the kitchen too. They don't make any smell, any noise, nothing. You wouldn't even know that they were there. So yeah, I do bring them in the winter. I also know someone who has built a vermicompost in the ground. So they were able to do it about a foot or two into the ground, and it was warm enough for them to stay out all winter. So that's my next project. Tune in next summer for me digging up another section of my yard and putting a permanent home for my worms.
I love that. That was
Yeah,
great.
it should be good. I'm excited for it. But I think one of the things that, like, I mean, having worms is great and composting in your home is great. On a larger scale, we need to bring this to businesses. We need to talk to restaurants. We need to make sure that these larger corporations are accountable for how much food they're throwing out as well. So if you are interested, it's always so easy to just simply ask, simply ask your favorite restaurant, have you guys considered composting?
Hmm.
That's it. It's a simple question. And if we can see more of those businesses composting, more of your workplaces composting, if you're still going to an office or if you're still going to different places for events and things, ask. Just ask, hey, where does this food go? Is there a compost bin? It's kind of say it as if, like, you guys don't have a compost bin? Then people are like, wait, why would we compost? And it's like, well, you guys are behind. We should be composting. It's
For
20.
sure, for
So
sure.
it's really easy to make that difference. And if we have more people asking about it, I think it'll make a significant shift.
And I remember, you saying this a while back, and it really resonated with me was that, like, as consumers, we have more of a say than we think. How, think about every dollar you spend is like casting a vote for something.
Exactly.
So where are you casting your vote? Like, where are you putting that? And raising those questions, like maybe restaurants don't know it's as much of a concern, but if everybody who cared about that went in and said, what are you doing for composting? What are you doing
Right.
for recycling? They would, it would definitely become higher on their radar in terms of things to do, right?
For sure. Actually, at the moment, I'm doing waste audits with a company, and we literally go to different businesses and tell them, hey, 75% of your waste is food waste. So save yourself some money, stop getting as many garbage pickups, and get a compost. It's as easy as that. So I've been learning so much about what makes it easier for businesses to get involved with it, and I hope it's a shift. In other words, though, if you don't want to go to the businesses, we can also advocate to our local municipalities. The region, Halton region, is responsible for our food waste. How many residents are asking about the composting programs for Halton? How many residents are able to write to their council members to just say, our population in Halton is going to be growing astronomically over the next 10 years. Do we have a plan for where all of our food waste is going? We have a landfill that takes yard trimmings and recyclables, but where are we sending our compost, and how come it's not integrated into our community plan? Of course, nobody really wants to have a compost site near their house or in their backyard, but there are so many options for a smell-free facility in 2020 that we should be looking into now, because it'll probably take about 10 years for them to put it in anyway. So I think that's another key action item for our residents here in Halton, or anywhere where you live.
That's awesome.
I don't even think that they compost at all in the States, which was really traumatizing when I was living there. It's not great.
So there's a question here that says, how does composting save them money?
So
which is actually a really good question, because often like, when it comes to environmental issues, you know, money is always a barrier. Is it, like, can composting save money?
For sure. So essentially how it would save you money is that a garbage pickup is the most expensive. When you're picking up recycling, because there's an aftermarket for it, you don't pay as much. The same thing with composting. Because they can literally sell it, make it into either natural gas or into compost and soil, they actually make money off of your food waste. So they don't charge as much for the pickups. When you are a business and let's say you reduce your garbage pickups from 5 times a week to 2 times a week, but you are doing 1 pickup of compost a week, you're saving significantly in how much garbage you're picking up. Where we need to see more policy or more incentive is from the regions or the municipalities offering those businesses either free pickup or reduced discount for, a discount for those other services. This is something that I believe that if well thought out, it can be done at such an it can be done so easily. It doesn't really need to be, it's not rocket science. It's literally just separating your garbage and having a pickup for it. So it's really interesting to see how many businesses think it's going to cost them more money to be more sustainable. But in reality, it's definitely going to reduce your costs and increase your promotions. We've seen Boonburger. Boonburger is probably the only restaurant that composts in Halton, and they brand it. They make it known that they care about the planet, and they want others to care about it as well.
That's such a good model too, because I don't think they've been around all that long, but they're coming in. I think they're fully, I'm not sure if they're fully vegan or vegetarian, but
fully vegan.
Awesome. And I know all their wrapping and everything is eco-friendly too. So there you go. Boom Burgers, like taking a big step up in Burlington downtown. That's great to see.
And I mean, even if a business cannot necessarily, maybe they don't want to make the switch into composting, how can we reduce your food waste as much as possible? Do you need smaller portions? Do you need to talk to your chef about maybe saving your veggie scraps or saving your breadcrumbs or whatever else it is that you can do to reduce how much food is actually going into the landfill?
Or even paring down menus so you don't have like a million options that you need to potentially cater to, whereas, you know, keep it smaller, keep it simple and local.
Exactly. And I think that that's super important too. When this whole pandemic happened, there was that focus on local food, and that's what I'm loving. I know I hate it. It's the silver lining though, that we really did focus on supporting our local businesses. We saw small businesses working together, and we were able to see that strong community come together to show resilience. And with that, our food security can become resilient as well. So I think that there's a lot of hope. We just need to connect those dots a little bit more, and have the disconnect from society and our food removed. We need to reconnect with our food, know where it comes from, and honor it, because it's our life and it's so delicious, and we should be grateful for absolutely all of the food that's around us.
I completely agree. I know that there was just a comment, someone is asking where the store was, and if this is referring to Boom Burger, which we were just talking about, it's downtown Burlington. I can't remember which street, but
is
I
it
know
Pearl Street? I think it might, no, or it's the street behind
Elizabeth.
Pearl. Elizabeth, that's the one.
I think it's Elizabeth Street.
Yeah.
Just Google Boom Burger Burlington, and it's the only one, so you'll be able to find it.
There is actually one in Oakville as well.
Nice.
I know. I'm super excited about that.
That's good to know that there's good eco-friendly businesses expanding. That's something always exciting to see.
It's
yeah. So was there anything else you wanted to cover about like shopping or reducing waste at home?
Oh, okay. One more thing. We as consumers play a huge role in this, of course. Now, we already talked about making a list. We already talked about storage. We need to look at our expectations. We go into a store and we expect for the shelves to be fully stocked. This just makes it seem it's unnecessary. We don't need them to be stocked fully at all times, because a lot of that food goes to waste. The second thing is our expiration dates or best before dates. Please, please, please understand when I tell you the only things that are legally mandated to have an expiration date are infant formula and prescriptions. Everything else is simply a guideline for when it is best to eat that food. And of course, you have to use your instincts. If it's, a couple weeks past the date, smell it, taste it, whatever you need to do to make sure it's okay. But it's not a time bomb. It's not going to expire at midnight of that day. I promise you. We really need to get over that fear, especially for things like yogurt. Like, it's already bacteria.
Yeah.
Bacteria. And I think people have the most fear when those little yogurt packs say we expire yesterday, and people just chuck them out. Like, I promise you, it is a guideline, and there needs to be a little bit more awareness as to what that date actually means and what it means to you when you're consuming it.
I've heard people say, and I know that this might not sound the nicest, but like the sniff test,
the sniff test,
is a pretty good method.
Yes. I had a really bad experience with a cauliflower soup that I just took a little taste test, and that was a little unpleasant, but I mean, you got to figure it out. You shouldn't just say, oh, okay, like, it's expired, I shouldn't eat it. You got to try it.
Or at least smell it.
Yeah, exactly. Don't taste it right away, smell it first. Yeah, for sure. No, there's a lot that we can do as consumers, and you said it. You support with your dollars. You can see the businesses that care about the food that they provide. They care about the sustainability of it, because if we're not composting, we're not creating soil. If we're not maintaining our soil, we're not growing food. Those stores are going to be out of business. So we have to think logically about what's happening in the future. So support those stores, support local, do what you can to reduce and divert waste. Don't just leave it in your home. Bring it to your work, to your school, to your favorite restaurant. And most importantly, I think, bring it to your council. Bring it to the Halton region. Is now a good time to talk about the Halton region?
Perfect
plan?
time.
So the Halton region is hosting basically an open feedback from the community to discuss the new regional official plan review. There's different sections and categories. Climate change is one of them. Agriculture is another one. Natural preservation and heritage sites, I believe, is another one. There's about 5 different categories. And they're asking for the public's opinion. They're asking questions for you to take into consideration with the development of our community. And I really urge people, it's very heavy stuff. It's very dense papers. The discussion papers will definitely put you to sleep, but it's really worth it to at least see what the questions they are asking. And if you feel you can contribute to them, please do. Please share your ideas. Keep it short and sweet. point form answers are best. Just get your voice heard about the things that you think, you know, and a lot of the things we've talked about, a lot of the things BG talks about so much as well. It doesn't just have to do with food, but we can have those voices heard, and now is the time. I believe the cutoff date is September 28th, so you still have about a week or so. What day is it? I don't even know anymore.
17th.
Okay, so you
So
still
like
have,
10
you
days or
know,
so.
11 days where you can get through one or two of the papers and just say where your concerns are, where are your ideas. Let's be innovative, let's be progressive, let's actually do something to make us a resilient community. Not
For
that we aren't
sure.
already, but we could be more prepared.
Yeah, it totally makes sense. It's, there's not always, those opportunities to feel like someone's asking your opinion for like, city planning or regional planning. So this is kind of a unique time where your thoughts, your views can maybe shape what the future of Burlington and Halton look like. And I
For,
mean, if it is really dense stuff, I mean, that's good feedback too. Like,
oh yeah,
people want to give these concerns, but it's not easy when it's not user friendly. Like, does it
exactly.
need to be a paper? What are the Coles notes? Like,
Yeah.
make it easy for people, right?
And that was actually one of the things that I have on my, I'm accumulating all my answers now, but that's definitely one of the things I have for the average resident. It's not easy. It's not easy to contribute. And this is something I do all the time, and I'm having troubles getting through these documents. So it makes me nervous for, again, the average resident who doesn't maybe think about this stuff or work in this field or in this industry. It really cuts them out of the loop because they might have really great ideas. You know, you never know where other people are coming from, other cities that they've lived in, some ideas that they can bring to the table. So get together with friends and start a little group to answer these questions. Reach out. I mean, if you have any questions or suggestions, I wouldn't mind contributing to one document and sending them in. I mean, whatever can make most voices heard. Let's do it. Now's the time.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, for
Was
sure.
there anything else that you wanted to touch on before we maybe see if there's any questions?
I think that was it, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, I think that was pretty much it.
I think that was wonderful. Now, does
I was
anybody who's tuning in right now, does anyone have any questions that they want to ask Chantelle about, food security or food waste or mindful consumption? Feel free to, send them through. I do have a few that came
sure.
from, myself and the BG team, just talking amongst ourselves. And I think you touched on this a little bit already, but I had heard Canada was one of the worst countries in the world for food waste. And I think you mentioned, from, a great deal of it comes from individuals. What about, and you even mentioned like farmers creating excess because there's certain things that they grow that aren't going to be sold, like that imperfect food or stuff that might spoil in, at transit. I'm not sure if that's included, but what about grocery stores? I mean, I feel like there's so much there. Like, how do they work into it in terms of like food waste?
So, for the most part, grocery stores are mandated to compost.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that.
Yeah, buildings of a certain size, and depending on which industry they are in, some are actually by the Environmental Protection Act required to compost. So when we look at stores like Longo's or Nature's Emporium, they actually do a really great job to not only reduce their own costs, but to divert as much waste as possible. It's not to say that they're not it's not to say that they are perfect, but they're definitely trying. Nature's Emporium stands out. They are so good at using their discarded produce for their smoothie bars. They have a fresh meal prep area where they use those vegetables that are going to get thrown away. They use the old bread to make croutons and different things, and they sell it. Like, they understand the value of that food. So the stores like that need to be applauded for that. Longo's actually has competitions with other stores to divert as much waste as possible. So when they have great diversion rates, it's actually like a competition between the Longo's stores. So they are really passionate about diverting waste.
I had no idea. I
They
feel
don't
like,
promote it.
yeah, I feel like that's like a huge talking point because I seasonally I'll do as much shopping as I can at the farmer's market, but
Right.
in the winter seasons, there's nothing, we don't have that winter market here. So
Mhm.
knowing that, I would maybe be more inclined to go the little bit extra distance to get
For
there.
sure. And I mean, don't get me wrong. Again, we said that there's different ways that they can do better. They usually do have an, what's it called? Like a rack for reduced food, um, which I usually look at, but I get turned off because it has like styrofoam and lots of
So
packaging.
much.
They always do that. I'm not sure why they have to wrap it in styrofoam and plastic because it actually makes it ripen faster when it's like that. Um, so I would talk to them and I would say, this is really great. Does it have to be packaged so much? Is there any way that we can discuss what you guys can do with this food instead of always throwing it out? Because a lot of that food in the reduced rate and rack always gets chucked. It doesn't usually stay for too long.
Hmm.
Um, I always ask. I always ask the stock boys, hey, what are you doing with all that fruit that you're pulling? And when they say like, oh, like it's no good, we can't sell it. It's like, well, why though? And when you can question it, when you can just ask and start conversations about it, we're not accusing. We're not yelling at any stock boys or yelling at the cashiers. No, Chantelle did not send you to do that. We're just asking if there's a way that we can voice to the management there that the food doesn't have to look perfect. It doesn't have to be a perfect size. It can simply be, maybe a new campaign where they sell ugly fruit. What's wrong with that? I
I
think
know,
people
I
would
love
love
that. I know
that.
there are little places and probably more independents that do it, but
I've seen
I've
it.
heard it and I've heard they were a hit. I
Yeah.
know you and I had talked about this once before at one of our eco solutions about
Mhm.
when you get your receipt at the end of a grocery trip. There's
Right.
usually a survey you can take, and that's a great spot where you can talk about, food waste or packaging for
For
reduced food.
sure. And
Hmm.
I'm always concerned because I've worked in a kitchen my whole life. Like I've been in the food industry with my first job. I mean, I've done every position in a kitchen from dishwasher to line cook, prep cook, server, anything, you name it. And it just surprises me because the best chefs I've worked with have been able to use everything. And so the same business concept applies to a grocery store. How do you ensure that the food that you're getting, if you cannot sell it, how do you modify it or process it and make your own orange juice or make your own whatever bread crumbs or anything, whatever you want to do, but we have that potential. So it's really just encouraging them and holding them accountable for it.
I like that. I do have another question I want to squeeze in.
Sure.
You mentioned earlier urban agriculture.
Oh,
What would that look like?
ah,
Or what does that
utopia.
look like?
It would. It would look like a community that has integrated agriculture into its suburban areas. So we're looking at green roofs, we're looking at community gardens, we're looking at modular farms like container farms. We're looking at different things that within your suburban landscape, you have access to grow food, you have access to that nutritious fresh food. So in Toronto, they have a lot of great policies about the rooftops. Buildings of a certain size have to have at least 15% solar panels or 15% rooftop gardens, which is amazing. We're seeing more places around the world that have apiaries on their tops as well. So bee farms, beehives on the rooftops, especially at
So cool.
hotels for some strange reason. Um, we're seeing more people wanting chickens in their backyard. We're seeing this almost this reemergence of people leaving the city to start hobby farms, small hobby farms. So how do we bring that to our neighborhoods, especially since we have the most fertile land in all of Southern Ontario? Sorry, in all of Ontario. We
Yeah.
have perfect farming land here. So why we have the most densely populated communities here is beyond me. But how can we bring back that holistic system so that we have food in these communities too?
I love that.
Yeah.
And but we're running out of time because we know that we will get kicked out at 1 hour. So there's one more question I want to take here. It says, what's the best way to get involved on more of an individual level if you don't work in the field, maybe in a volunteer capacity? And actually, you'd probably be the perfect person for this because of all the work you've done.
I think it really comes down to asking yourself what you would like to do. Do you want to garden? Do you want to process food? Do you want to deliver food? Do you want to write letters to your local council? There's a lot of really great organizations. I'm going to tell you 112 food organizations within Halton. So whatever you want to do, whether it's volunteering or contributing to advocate for food security, there's typically a group. If you'd like to connect with me, I can point you in the right direction to certain organizations that might be appealing to you, especially if you're looking, for casual volunteering or for more consistent letter writing to your council members, which is always really fun if you have a lot to say.
Oh, well, that's been absolutely wonderful. I think you really brought it in all today. I feel like we covered all of it, from like what you can do as an individual, what you can change at home right now, what you can do on a larger scale in the community, how to be involved, how to get businesses to care. And then even like from the policy side, like we know that now's a great time for people to share their voice and their opinions on what they want Halton to look like. And we definitely want to make use of our fertile land and grow food here and keep it here. I think that's so important. So I really want to thank you again, Chantelle, for coming and joining and sharing all your knowledge. It's always a treat.
It's always a pleasure being able to talk with you. I love this. It's like I never left BG.
All right. So, so this is all recorded, and we're going to be posting it on Facebook and YouTube, and so you'll be able to access it again later and rewatch it. So thanks again, Chantelle. I'm going to just kick you out a little bit just so I can wrap up.
Yeah. Thank
you so much.
Bye.
All right, guys. And before we wrap up, I want to thank Chantelle again for joining us and really, letting us know about, food security, food waste, mindful consumption, and what we can do, in the future moving forward, how we can help shape our community. I think that stuff is so important. Before you leave, we just have a few things to mention. Chantelle did talk about that the Halton region, I think it's called the Halton Region Plan Review. It's a questionnaire online. She has, given a little warning. It is a bit heavy, but that is something that you can do to share your voice and your concerns and help shape what Halton and Burlington look like. We're going to include the link in the description when we upload the video. Likewise, if you don't feel like doing that, reaching out to your counselors, reaching out to your, politicians in your area, or even at all levels of government is really a great way to make a difference. Never underestimate the power of your voice, truly. And likewise, we also have a small survey. If you're able to complete it, it would be so appreciated. This is just a survey about what you thought about the event, how it went. It lets us know how we're doing and what you'd like to see in the future. We'll include the link for that on the upload as well. And then lastly, Burlington Green, we are a local charity. We get our funding from a variety of sources, and any donations we get, they go towards impactful work that helps, protect the environment, mitigate climate change, and really raise the local voices for the environment in Burlington. If you're able to give, it's so appreciated. If not, we also understand. So if you're not able to give, a great thing you can do is spread the word about us, share our posts, check us out on social media. We do have some fun special giving opportunities, throughout the year. So I really want to thank you so much for coming in and joining us, and we hope to see you next time. Bye, everybody.